And I'm figuring out a way to wake up every morning and say, tomorrow's going to be a better day. I'm going to make a new connection today. I'm going to learn something new today. And that's the scrappiness of it all, right?
I'm Tracy Lovejoy.
And I'm Shannon Lucas.
We're the co-CEOs of Catalyst Constellations, which is dedicated to catalyzing innate change makers to accelerate positive change. This is our podcast, Move Fast, Break Shit, Burn Out, where we highlight catalysts that are creating amazing change in the world. In this season of the podcast, we're diving deep into the skills that make catalysts successful. And we just had a pre-talk with our amazing guest today, LaTranda Irons, who has amazing skills that she shared with us. And you're going to hear some of this in the bio. So LaTranda is the lead for organizational effectiveness for North America region at the Estee Lauder companies. And prior to joining the Estee Lauder companies, she was a manager at Accenture Strategy, as well as commissioned as a foreign service officer for the U.S. Department of State, where her diplomatic assignments included Pretoria, South Africa, Caracas, Venezuela, Mexico City, Mexico, where she worked to safeguard human rights and to combat the scourge of human trafficking. And in that time frame, she was also working with the baseball league in Cuba, right? Lots of work that was going on in there that I'm so excited about in your background. LaTranda has earned 3 graduate degrees, an MBA from the S.C. Johnson School of Management at Cornell University, and an MA from both Cornell School of Industrial and Labor Relations and the Maxwell School of Public Policy at Syracuse University. But wait, we're not done, because in her spare time, LaTranda volunteers to support the work of several nonprofit organizations, including her own family's Southern Scholars Initiative, which was created to honor the legacy of her beloved maternal grandmother and her aunt. And in the extra couple of hours that she has, maybe per day or per week, she has recently, in March of this year, launched her own business and brand, Unamamagetic, clothing and lingerie line for mothers in all of their beautiful body types and in all their forms of motherhood, from nursing to getting back out there moving, but most of all, owning it wherever you are in your mama journey. So thank you, LaTranda, for being here with us today.
Oh, you're most welcome, Tracy. Your introduction makes me love my life a lot more than I do on a daily basis. So thank you. I need you around all the time to remind me of these things.
You are that awesome. Yeah.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, Tracy. It's such an honor to be here with you both today. So thank you for inviting me.
We are delighted to have you. So we'd love to have you start off by letting us know, how do you relate to the concept of catalyst?
Okay, so you know the term born to be wild. So my term is born to be a catalyst, right? It sounds so cheesy. It sounds so cheesy, but it's true, right? I'm a middle child, so I'm the third of 4. And so you kind of have to be a change maker when you become the third of 4, right? Because there's a precedent that the other 2 set that either the parents are expecting you to go along with or expecting you to change. And I think from the beginning, my parents expected me to change and do something different than what my older siblings did. And for me, it was all about, I grew up in a very small town in rural South Carolina. No one ever knows that about me, but I say it all the time. And they always say, oh my God, you must have grown up in like this beautiful, charming antebellum home and all of these other things. I'm like, that's not just what the South is about, but okay, sure. But I grew up in a small town, and I grew up in a very education-focused family. So a lot of my family went along to get bachelor's degrees and master's degrees, focused in on education for the most part. And by the time it came around to me, I was like, I'm not doing any of that. I am choosing a career that no one in the family has ever done before as my first career. And I researched as a kid, up until I got ready to go to college. I said, I'm going to find that one career that nobody else in the family has. And it was U.S. diplomacy. And that's how so that was my start of change making, is setting a new path and setting a new course for the family.
I love that so much. Like coming out of the womb, born to be a catalyst. Thank you for that gift. That energizes me. So in your journey as a catalyst from those earliest of moments, what have you found are 1 or 2 essential skills that have made you really successful? And we love to hear the stories that have gone well and stories that maybe haven't gone as well as we learn these skills along.
Look, I think it's scrappiness, and I think it's ability to influence and bring others along for the journey. That's the 2 things that have always been core to me. And that's, to me, that scrappiness is implicit of curiosity and resilience and creativity and all of these things. And so I've always been that person. I'll tell you, I did 3 high schools I attended 3 different high schools. I started out in my small town high school with like a full school of 300 people, right? Our graduating class was usually 60. my mom relocated us to Round Rock, Texas. And in my sophomore year, that was a school that had like 3,000 kids in it. So it's completely different. And then my last 2 years, I finished up at a science and technology school in Massachusetts. And all of those things just taught me a level of scrappiness and an ability to kind of sort of use my influence skills and use my ability to connect with other people and read the room in order to get myself acclimated really quickly in those spaces, to make friends really, really quickly. So I didn't feel like I was on the fringe. And then quite frankly, in some cases, to really get myself acclimated into these new worlds. I mean, you're talking about new academic environments, new expectations. And somehow I always ended up at the top of my class, no matter where I went. I mean, I got to Texas, and at the end of the year, I'm the new kid in the block, and I'm in the top, 5% of the class, right? And that takes scrappiness going from this small town rural school, right, with 300 people total, where my mom was a teacher, to go into a school where there's 3,000 people on a campus that looks like a junior college, but still I'm rocking it out, I'm making it happen, and I'm figuring out ways to leverage the people around me and to leverage my own intellect in order to bridge those gaps in terms of what I needed, but also making sure that I didn't feel like I was alone and I was in a bubble and like I had to give up. It was always about how do you figure out how to push. And I think my scrappiness and my influence really does help me along the way. I've seen that pop up in every aspect of my career. I mean, none of these careers are things that I knew what I was walking into when I was going into them. I mean, I didn't know what being a foreign service officer meant, but I know I was going to have to pick up all of my stuff and move to other countries in order to be able to do it. And in some cases, the countries where there was some hostility between our own governments and those local governments. But I said, that's not going to stop me from doing my job. This is what I want to do, and this is what's important to me. And so I need to figure out how to build relationships, even though there's something else happening from a political perspective at the higher levels. And I did. And I've done that, and I've taken that with me with everything I go. And I expect it of my teams too. I expect them to be scrappy, and I expect them to bring other people along, because you cannot do it on your own. You have to be able to create that inner circle to make sure that you can get from one place to the next.
I would love you to take us kind of into a moment, and then I'm going to ask us to pull a thread. So it could be any of the transitions in schools, right?
Yep.
That maybe that first one of small to big. What does the scrappiness look like on a day-to-day? Like how does that actually transition into how I operate? And then I'd love that thread to say, what does that mean in a work context, right?
Correct.
What's the relationship of how we translate that forward?
No, it's really even thinking about the school situation, right? Even at a young age, it's about getting out of bed every morning with an outlook that says today's going to be better than the last day, right? And that starts very early on, right? It's easy to say, I've been in this small town for all of my life. I've always been at the top of the class. I've always been the one that's selected for the special programs. To have to leave that context at 14, 15 years old and get plucked out of that, where everybody knows who you are, everybody knows your family, everybody knows what you can do, and then to move into a context where nobody really knows you, right? You're going and walking into this world that's completely different. Teenagers today think that they have it really, really tough, and that's true, they do. You just have it tough as a teenager in general. But to find those spaces where every morning I get up and I say, you know what? I know I'm the new kid, but I'm going to join the track team. And you know what? I know I'm the new kid, but I'm going to join the drama club. And you know what? I'm the new kid, but I'm going to wake up anyway, and I'm going to make friends, and I'm going to figure out a way that I start to feel like this is home for me. And I start to feel like I have influence, and people start to know my name. And I start to build up a reputation for something in a good way instead of a negative way. And I think that threads into the work environment as well. I've had like 4 different careers over the course of my 20-year journey, right? And every time I started as the new kid on the block. I come into the State Department, I'm the new kid. I'm a new foreign service officer. I'm coming into a context, a cultural context that I've learned about, but this is not my culture. And I'm figuring out a way to wake up every morning and say, tomorrow's going to be a better day. I'm going to make a new connection today. I'm going to learn something new today. And that's the scrappiness of it all, right? It's not coming into those contexts saying, well, I know it all. So, people should just kind of rally around me and trust that I'm leading in the right direction. The scrappiness comes from, you know what I know, but I don't know everything. And how do I connect in to the world that's around me in a way that it makes me better, but it also makes that world better as well. And so that's that piece that I've never let go of from the time I was a kid. And I think a part of it does come from the fact that my mother challenged us out of this very comfortable, safe, secure environment to one that would say, you know what, you've got to figure out how to make it in a different context where you're not the big fish in the small pond. Instead, you're the small fish in the big pond, but how do you become the bigger fish in the pond? And that's exactly what I take with me whenever I decide to do new things or switch careers or switch to new roles, is that this really becomes the center for me to keep me from being fearful of what's going to happen next.
I am taking mad notes because there's so much that's resonating for me. A couple of the things that are really lighting up in my body. We hear a lot of talk, and this is no disrespect to younger generations, but we hear a lot of talk about younger generations today in a sense of entitlement. And I don't love that, if that is a framing. And so I'll flip it, because what I hear and what you're saying is like, when you show up in these new places, don't wait to be discovered.
Correct.
Right? That one, you can begin to do the work by learning something new every day to understand this new context. Absolutely. Don't assume that whatever you were before is the thing that someone is waiting to know about you.
Mm-hmm.
And that it's, you can do work to create a feeling of home.
Absolutely.
Joining the track team, finding whatever it is you feel like you can be a part of to begin to build those relationships and that new reputation. And this is so important for Catalyst, a positive reputation, not a fill in the blank, disruptor reputation, correct, complaining reputation, pointing out all the problems reputation. The positive approach of constantly not just learning, but having something to offer. Absolutely. Is really powerful in what I'm hearing under this title of scrappiness.
That's right, Tracy. I mean, you captured it so eloquently in terms of, really articulating the meat of it, but that's it. And we say it all the time to the students in the Southern Scholars Initiative. My family's foundation is, every year we bring in a new class, and I always say, look, at the heart of it, you have got a wealth of resources of people who have walked the journey that you've walked before. Use them, right? Don't wait for them to come to you. Don't wait for us to set up a mentor for you. You see these people in the meetings, you see them on Zoom meetings, reach out to them. If it's something that you like about what they're doing, connect with them, make yourself known to them, and create that space for you to become known by them so that you both influence each other and you both bring something to the table.
Oh, wait, I love that as a through line. You mentioned that really at the heart is waking up and knowing that today is going to be an even better day. What about days when it's hard to connect to that level of belief, right? The energy is just depleted. What do you do?
Coffee. Illy coffee. Yeah. Chicory coffee. Like it gets me going. That's where it is. I mean, I joke, but one of the things I always do, and I'm usually up at 6 a.m. I'm up at 6 a.m. for a reason, for a couple of things. One, I need to start my day with the 5 minutes of meditation, right? I need to read my inspirational word for the day. I need to recenter myself. And then I need to get a quick workout in. So it used to be called a Mirror, but I think now it's called Lululemon Studios. I got it when it was still the Mirror, but that's been a center for me during the pandemic because I had twin girls, a few months before the world shut down. So everything in my world in terms of maintaining my balance, in terms of mental, physical, emotional, has happened in the walls of this house. That was supposed to be, not a permanent house. It's supposed to be like a waited out until New York opens again. And now it has become a permanent home for us. But I have to do those things in the morning. And I see the difference for me when I don't have that hour or so in the morning to reconnect with my center. I feel it, and I feel it throughout the day. And so 6 a.m., it's early. And even though it's early, I have to remind myself that when I come down those stairs, don't go straight to your office. Don't log on. If you log on and you start responding to email at that point, you're going to be responding until 8 a.m. And by then you've missed your window to have that moment. And quite frankly, I like being up, having my coffee, doing my meditation as the sun is coming up, because there's something about that renewal that comes from seeing the sun come up that kind of creates a calm for me to let me know, okay, now's the start of the new day. I know you weren't feeling great when you got up, but you've gotten your inspiration, you've gotten a little bit of a workout, you've got your coffee, now you see the sun coming up. Now you know that things are brightening. Even if it's not a perfect day, it's a new day for you to try to figure out how to reconnect and to make some things happen today that may not have happened on yesterday. That's the most honest answer I could give, because they're not all good days. But at the end of the day, you've got to find those things that will keep you centered, even when the day feels a little out of whack for you and like everything is kind of sort of marching under a gray cloud.
If I'm hearing it right, because some of these words you didn't say, so please course correct me if I'm wrong, is that scrappiness isn't necessarily a skill someone's born with or not, or that you cultivate or you don't, but scrappiness is a commitment. And part of that commitment is every day recommitting and doing the things that allow you to be centered so that you can get into that mindset of, I'm going to do the work to learn, that I'm going to do the work to make today better than yesterday.
Yeah, it all has a trickle down effect, right? You can't just say I'm going to be scrappy at work, but then once work hours are over, I'm just going to slouch back into my old world, because that in and of itself means if your old world is not balanced and you're not feeling great about that, you can't bring that scrappiness into your day-to-day. You can't bring that into your side hustles. You can't bring anything into that because you're feeling off center to begin with. But if you start each day with scrappiness, and you see scrappiness is something that starts from the time I get out of bed until the time I go to bed, it's not just about work, because it's not just all about work. It's also about that personal balance as well, and making sure that you bring your best self, and you're changing your outlook in terms of how you see your personal life as well, so that it impacts the way you see your professional life. And it all just kind of comes together, quite frankly.
I love that. And I think it's a great transition point as you kind of talk about that arc of being a catalyst and a scrappy catalyst all day long. And so what do you feel like is your biggest challenge as a catalyst leader right now?
Time. There are never enough hours in a day. Sometimes I dream about the day being longer than it really is, right? Sometimes I go to bed with something on my head, like you didn't finish this before you went to sleep. And then in my dream, I work it all out in my dream. And I'm like, yeah, I got that deck done. And then I wake up and I'm like, no, you didn't get that deck done. But I'm smart enough now to keep a pen and a paper by my desk, by my bed, because what I've noticed is that if I have a dream like that and I wake up right away, if I just start writing it down, I will have like a nice little storyboard by the time I wake up. So when I am, through with my morning routine, I can go straight into that, and I've written it down on a piece of paper. So now I've got it in my head how I should approach that situation, but it's never enough time. It's not enough time to focus in sometimes and take a step back and really connect the dots and see the full picture versus that little slice of the picture that you're working on at that point. I feel like there's never enough time to spend with my team and to help from a developmental perspective, although they're always telling me, you spend more than enough time, we can always ping you and text you and you'll hop on a call with us no matter what's going on. But I don't feel like I'm giving as much time. There's never enough time for family. There's never enough for this. And so it's really about figuring out how do you portion out those moments. And so, we laughed about it in terms of, having, time or free days. But, the reality of this is that I do find those moments where I have to unplug, because I do have a family, and I have twin girls who are 3.5 who can talk and can tear my house apart. And they are constantly reminding me about work, and they're always asking me on Sunday nights, Mommy, why do grown-ups have to work? And I said, that vegan cheese you like so much, that vegan cheese isn't cheap. So Mommy has to work to make sure you get the vegan cheese. Do you still want the vegan cheese? And they're like, yes, Mommy, go to work. So that's how you have to, that's the piece. The time is of the essence for me. And it's really, really tough, but I figure out how to balance. And quite frankly, I'll say this to be a little tongue in cheek, but I'm unamamagetic about the decisions that I make when it comes to my family versus when it comes to work. And I can't apologize for that, because if I do, I will be in a constant state of feeling like I'm screwing one thing or the other up. And I don't feel like I'm screwing one thing or the other up. I feel like I'm doing a pretty good job balancing it all. And until I get a note otherwise from one of the girls, then I'm going to continue down that path.
I love the tie. We didn't say this in the intro of unamamagetic to unapologetic.
Correct.
So thank you. Thank you for bringing that forward.
Of course.
All right, Shannon, will you move us into rapid fire?
I will. I get to shift to the somewhat lighter stuff, but I have to say, I wish that vegan cheese was the leverage point that I had on my teenagers. Because it gets more expensive,
right?
Exactly right. Exactly right. But I love that that's the 3-year-old mind is like, that's good quality. That you're right. Yep.
I try, Shannon.
All right. And I also just want to acknowledge actually, like, you know, as a single mom, one of the things that I always talked about was like thinking about the time horizons and the flow. Yeah. And I just love the unapologetic, like we do the best that we can. No one's handing us, there isn't a perfect. And also I thought, you know, I've raised all boys, but I also thought about the modeling. It's like being career driven, passion driven, you have your foundations. It's like you can live your whole life and have some time for your kids, and it's not always going to be perfect. So thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
All right. Fun part. So what is one thing that you do to get ready for a big meeting?
So I actually do too. I pray for the right words and the right temperament to connect with the audience that I'm going into. And this is usually just with like really senior leadership meetings. So, you know, I have a manager who's always challenging me to lead and drive through these meetings, and she's super supportive of me getting through these types of meetings. But I don't over prep for them. I know what I know, and I pray, and I pray for the right words, and I pray for the temperament. And then right before the meeting, I listen to a motivational song. So Shannon, I don't know how motivational the audience will think this is, but I listen to one of two songs before I go into these meetings. I either listen to "Hate It or Love It" by The Gang and 50 Cent, or I listen to "Don't Let Me Down" by the Chainsmokers. And there's something about those two songs that gives me a bunch of energy, and I'm ready to go, and I'm pumped up, like coming out of a locker room. And that's my ritual when I'm going into these very, very senior leadership meetings, to kind of take my mind off of the heaviness that comes along with those meetings. Yeah.
The moving into the lightness and the fun and the
exactly.
So we will ask you for the links. We will put the links in the show note, and we have a Catalyst Leadership Trust playlist. So we should start, Tracy, collecting songs. I love that you have a walk-on song for whatever the hell meeting you're walking into.
That's true. Me. You gotta have it. You gotta have your own band playing in your head. That's how you get through the day.
I love it. I am totally stealing that, by the way. All right. We've talked about you're super busy, but when you have a free day or have free time, what's your favorite thing to do?
Long drives. So we pack the girls in the car. My husband takes the driver's seat. We stay off of the interstate. We find some local rural road and we follow it until we're hungry, and we get out, we eat, we explore, and then we get in the car at some point and we come back. If it's really late, we find some place to stay. But that's our thing. We love to drive. Me and my husband actually did a cross-country trip for our honeymoon. So we did 3 weeks cross-country. We got married in South Carolina. So we started in South Carolina, went down to Savannah, drove from East Coast to West Coast, and then up into some of the national parks, camps, did all of that good stuff, and made it back into New York in 3 weeks. So we really like to drive. We like to explore. We like to see all of America. And so we enjoy the same things with our girls, quite frankly.
And teaching them the joy of exploration and uncharted territory,
Correct.
like being open to the experience. That's amazing. What a gift. And I'll say it's not surprising, actually, the unstructured, agendaless time.
It's very true, Shannon, because I keep telling people, people at work, they're like, oh my God, you must be like super organized in your life. And I'm like, no, I literally hide things in closets all the time, because when people come over, I don't want them to see how chaotic everything is in my personal life. But like, I literally am not structured at all when it comes to my personal life. And a part of that, the reason why, is I have such little time to be unstructured that I don't want plans when it comes to my free days. I just want to get in the car and just go and just let the road take us wherever we want to go, and the gas stations, quite frankly.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. Favorite catalyst. No, I always say that wrong. Favorite famous catalyst, alive or dead, and why?
Zora Neale Hurston, no doubt about it. I actually named my daughter, one of my 2 daughters is named Zora. And a part of it is Zora Neale Hurston captivated me with her writing. I think I read her first book when I was like 9 years old, like probably more adult than I should be reading. But you know what? My mom was like, you started reading early. You moved on to the big leagues very, very early on in your life. I love Zora Neale Hurston, not only because of her influence on the Harlem Renaissance and just the renaissance of documenting Black lives and Black experiences in these stories, but like there's so many figures like Alice Walker and Toni Morrison, who I also love, who were completely influenced by Zora Neale Hurston. And quite frankly, Zora Neale Hurston immortalizing experiences of Black women in her books. I resonated with so many of those Black women. I grew up with those Black women. And that to me was just such a big deal at a time when there weren't really a lot of books that were telling our stories, and especially telling our stories through the lens of someone growing up in the South. And I love her for that. Like I said, so much so that I named my dog after her. And if I ever have a boy, I will name him Hurston. So I'll have a daughter named Zora and a daughter named Astra, and I will have a son named Hurston. Because to me, I mean, she was just such a powerful writer, and she made such an impact on me at a very young age. And so I hold that with me.
Powerful. And the capturing of the linguistics too. I mean, just like the depth.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, absolutely.
You are so inspirational to me. I have taken a couple of things that I'm going to do differently in my life. And I just have to go back to build a reputation in a good way. It's such a good note, and the connection to that about your personal practice, about how you show up every day in the morning. So I went back there because I'm wondering, like, what's your call to action aside from going to Unamamagetic when we post this, and we'll have the link there. Other things that you want to call our listeners to do?
You know, I always think about this Muhammad Ali quote, don't count the days. What is it? Oh God, I just knew this one. Don't count the days. Don't count the days. Don't let the days count you. I believe it's something like that. I'm sorry. I had the quote in my head earlier today. I can't remember it. But I like that quote because it's about the difference between living and existing, right? And I don't want to just exist. I want to live. And so to the audience, you know, live, own it. Whatever your something is, whatever your passion is, it's okay for you to do what you need to do in order to keep the lights on, and on the side, do what you want to do in order to keep your internal lights on so that your light doesn't dim in the process. And so I always say to folks, own it and find what, you know, keeps you steady and keeps you with a roof over your head, but also find that thing that keeps you whole on the inside as well, because those things really have to come together in order for you to get up every morning and at least be grateful and thankful for what's ahead for that particular day.
Mic drop. You are so inspirational. Thank you so much, LaTranda.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. I am so grateful for both of you, and I'm so grateful for you all connecting with me last year, allowing me to go through the Catalyst program. I learned a lot about myself during that process, and I learned a lot from the people that I partnered with as a result of that program. And so it's just amazing to have, you know, partners like you all and lifelong partners now that we're all connected. So thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you. And to our listeners, thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to learn more about how to accelerate positive change, go to our website at catalystconstellations.com.
Be sure to check out our book, Move Fast, Break Shit, Burn Out. If you have other catalysts in your life, hit the share button and send a link their way.